Vitamin D deficiency. What is vitamin D? How does our body regulates vitamin D? The ultimate source and lot more of vitamin D we will know in this video. So stay till the end for some fabulous eye-opening tips and information you are going to get today. Hello and welcome back. I'm Adria, your nutrition and health coach, transforming lives naturally. The body regulates vitamin D levels through a tightly controlled process involving synthesis, conversion, and feedback mechanisms to maintain proper calcium and phosphate levels, which are critical for bone health and other physiological functions. We will get into the details on how it regulated, but first the forms of vitamin D. The primary forms are vitamin D2, I'll not get into the names, found in plant-based foods, mushrooms exposed to sunlight, and fortified products produced by irradiating ergosterol, a compound in plants with ultraviolet light, often used in supplements and fortified foods. Less effective in raising blood levels of active vitamin D compared to D3, which is found in animal-based foods, fatty fish, livers, egg yolk, and synthesized in skin upon exposure to UV sunlight. 7-dehydrocholesterol in the skin converts to vitamin D3 when exposed to UVB rays, common in supplements and considered more effective than D2 in maintaining adequate blood levels. 25-hydroxy vitamin D calcidiol. This is the form of vitamin D measured in blood tests and assesses vitamin D levels after ingestion or synthesis. Vitamin D, D2 or D3 is converted to 25-hydroxy vitamin D in the liver, acts as a storage form of vitamin D in the body. Calcitriol, the active hormonal form of vitamin D formed from 25-hydroxy vitamin D in the kidneys or in some cases other tissues like the immune cells, regulates calcium and phosphate metabolism, supporting bone health, immune function, and other physiological processes. Vitamin D metabolites, other minor forms and breakdown products exist often as a part of the metabolism or degradation of active vitamin D. Comparatively, D3 is potent and long-lasting than D2 in the body. Skin synthesis depends on factors like sunlight exposure, skin pigmentation, age, and geographic location, often used to address deficiencies, especially in populations with limited sun exposure or dietary intake. Coming back to how our body regulates vitamin D synthesis and initial absorption. When the skin is exposed to UVB sunlight, 7-dehydrocholesterol converts to vitamin D3. Vitamin D2 and D3 are absorbed through the intestines with the help of dietary fats and bile acids. Liver conversion, formation of calcidiol, vitamin D from the skin or diet is transported to the liver via the bloodstream, bound to vitamin D binding protein. In the liver, an enzyme called 25-hydroxylase converts into 25-hydroxy vitamin D. Calcidiol is the major circulating form and is stored in the blood. It serves as a precursor for the active form and as an indicator of vitamin D status. Kidney conversion, activation into calcitriol. Calcidiol is transported to the kidneys where the enzyme called 1-A-hydroxylase converts into calcitriol, the active hormonal form. When calcium levels in the blood are low, the parathyroid glands release parathyroid hormones. This hormone stimulates 1-A-hydroxylase in the kidneys, increasing calcitriol production, regulation by fibroblast growth. I understand that these terms are too much for you guys, but try to understand them to try to understand your body and help yourself in falling into some traps like you will get vitamin D through this, through that, and everything. So I really want you guys to understand how your body functions and what exactly gives you vitamin D. So let's continue. When phosphate levels are high, it suppresses 1-A-hydroxylase, reducing calcitriol production. Calcitriol increases calcium and phosphate absorption in the gut and reabsorption in the kidneys. When levels of calcium and phosphate normalizes, calcitriol production decreases. Storage in degradation. Excess vitamin D is stored in fat and muscle tissues or metabolized into inactive forms by enzymes like 24-hydroxylase. Inactive forms are excreted through bile and urine. Situations where vitamin D is either high or low, let's see how do they take place. Vitamin D deficiency. Low sun exposure, dietary insufficiency or kidney liver disease can impair production, leading to low calcium levels and secondary hyperparathyroidism. Excess vitamin D over supplementation can cause hypercalcemia, leading to kidney damage and other complications. Vitamin D is naturally found in few foods and many others are fortified to help meet dietary needs. Natural sources foods that contain vitamin D naturally, either as D3, D2, animal-based sources, D3, fatty fish, best source, cod liver oil, one of the richest source, egg yolks, amount varies depending on the chicken's diet. Liver contains small amounts of vitamin. Cheese contains trace amounts plant-based source vitamin D2. Mushroom, sunlight or UV light fortified foods. Many common foods are fortified with vitamin D to combat deficiency. Dairy products like milk, yogurt, cheese, but in a very small amount. Plant-based milk alternatives, almond milk, soy milk, oat milk, breakfast cereals often fortified with vitamin D, orange juice, certain brands are fortified. Special considerations, cooking effect. Vitamin D in foods is relatively stable during cooking, but frying at high temperatures can reduce its content. Dietary needs, vegetarians and vegans may need fortified foods since most natural sources of vitamin D are animal based. Coming to where it all begins, sunlight. Sunlight is the primary natural source of vitamin D for humans, playing a major role in its production through a process that occurs in the skin. Let's see how it works and why it's so important. When the skin is exposed to ultraviolet B rays from sunlight, it gets activated in the skin. A compound in the skin called 7-dehydrocholesterol, a derivative of cholesterol, absorbs UVB radiation. This leads to its conversion into pre-vitamin D3. Then comes thermal conversion. Pre-vitamin D3 undergoes a heat dependent process to form vitamin D3 and then transported to the liver and kidneys. There are several factors on how efficiently the skin synthesizes vitamin D. Time of the day, UVB rays are strongest between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Exposure during this time is most effective. Latitude and season, closer to the equator, higher UVB levels year round, and farther from the equator UVB is weaker, especially in winters. Lighter skin synthesizes vitamin D more quickly because it has less melanin, which blocks UVB rays. Darker skin requires longer exposure due to higher melanin levels. Coming to age, older adults produce less vitamin D because the skin contains less 7-dehydrocholesterol. Sunscreen SPF 30 or higher can reduce vitamin D synthesis by blocking UVB rays. Clothing or staying indoors also limits production. Air pollution and cloud cover reduces the amount of UVB that reaches the skin. Why sunlight is crucial? Because we have limited food sources, natural dietary sources or vitamin D are scarce. Sunlight compensates for this gap. It's fast and efficient. Even a brief exposure of the skin to sunlight can produce significant amounts of vitamin D. For most people, sunlight is free and a convenient source of vitamin D. Recommended sunlight exposure. The amount of sunlight needed varies by individual, but if you lack vitamin D, expose your face, arms and legs without sunscreen. For 5 to 30 minutes of midday sun, 2 to 3 times a week, varies by skin type, location and season. Keep it balanced by avoiding overexposure to minimize the risk of skin damage and cancer. There are certain challenges with sunlight as a source, such as in high altitude regions, UVB rays are sufficient during winter months. Lifestyle factors such as increased indoor living and sunscreen use have reduced natural vitamin D production globally. Those with malabsorption disorders may not convert vitamin D effectively. Even with adequate sunlight, sunlight-driven vitamin D synthesis is a remarkable natural process. Let's compare our two natural sources of vitamin D now. The two primary sources of vitamin D, sunlight and diet, differ significantly in how they provide the vitamin, their effectiveness and their potential limitations. Efficiency of vitamin D production through sunlight is highly efficient. The skin can produce large amounts of vitamin D in a short time with adequate exposure to ultraviolet B rays. For example, 15 to 20 minutes of midday sunlight on exposed skin can produce 10,000 to 20,000 IU of vitamin D. Unlimited capacity, excess vitamin D production is naturally regulated by the body to prevent toxicity. Through diet, sources are limited. Only a few foods naturally contain vitamin D: fatty fish, egg yolks, fortified foods. Most dietary sources provide relatively small amounts compared to what sunlight can produce. Check out the description for detailed information through sunlight. Vitamin D is synthesized in the skin, D3 readily bioavailable and effectively utilized by the body. Through diet, both D2 plant-based and D3 animal-based forms are absorbed in the intestine, but D3 is more effective at raising and maintaining blood levels of vitamin D. Moving on to reliability and accessibility, sunlight is free and widely available for those in sunny climates. Large areas of the body can synthesize vitamin D efficiently. Cons: ineffective in certain conditions such as high latitudes during winter, cloudy weather or air pollution, darker skin, high melanin reduces UVB absorption, use of sunscreen or covering clothing. It has a prominent risk of overexposure to UV rays leading to skin damage and increased cancer risk. Diet: pros are it can be consumed year round regardless of climate or lifestyle. No overexposure to UV risk, sunburn or skin cancer. Requires deliberate choices to include fortified foods. Regulation and safety: through sunlight the body naturally limits production once sufficient. Vitamin D is synthesized. Further production is inhibited by degradation pathways. Through diet, there is risk of toxicity with oversupplementation, hypercalcemia, but unlikely through natural foods alone. Major issues are lifestyle, sedentary indoor lifestyles, reduced sunlight exposure, making dietary sources more critical. People with fat malabsorption disorders may have difficulty absorbing dietary vitamin D, making sunlight a better option if feasible. So, which is better? Sunlight, best for most people as a primary source, especially in regions with adequate UVB exposure. Diet, essential for individuals with limited sun exposure, darker skin tones, or living in high latitude regions. Fortified foods are crucial in these cases. For optimal vitamin D levels, a combination of moderate sunlight exposure and vitamin D rich foods or fortified foods are often the best approach. This brings to the end of this video. I hope it has cleared most of your doubts and was quite informative. Stay healthy, take care, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Bye.